Hello, Dr. Mike Patten. How's it going?
Pretty good. Doc Tran, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for doing this podcast interview. I know we've been chatting back and forth on social media as well as text messages, but it's good to officially see you alive in the flesh. So that's good.
Yeah, no, likewise.
Okay. And then, so where are you at right now?
Right now, I am in my office, Blue Waters Health Center in Sarasota, Florida.
Okay, cool.
What?
And then, and where are you originally from?
Originally from Minnesota.
Okay, gotcha.
Born and raised up there, started practice up there with my dad. My dad practiced for almost 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to practice with him for a while before I moved here.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that was going to be my next question was like, how did you get into chiropractic?
Oh, yeah. No, that's all I've ever known. I've never known anything other than chiropractic for healthcare. There's people that talk about the being natural and stuff like that. I'm like, that's literally what it's been since the day I was born. That's just normal for me. And some people get sick and they think, oh, take a drug, and that's what they're taught with. I grew up, you got sick, you got adjusted. That was natural. It was normal for us. So that's always been my whole world. I have a lot of history and lineage in chiropractic. I have a great aunt that graduated from Palmer in 1913.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so we got that. My brother's a chiropractor, and I practiced with him for a little while in Minnesota.
Okay.
And so that was prior to moving down here. And him and I owned the business together for 10 years.
Okay.
And so I practiced with my brother. I have a cousin that's a chiropractor. I have another cousin that's going into chiropractic. It's in our family.
That's amazing. And then at what moment when you're growing up that you were like, okay, hey, I think I want to be a chiropractor?
So I was way more into athletics and sports. And I played some college basketball. I didn't play a whole lot. I was on the bench, but I was on the team. And I went to go make video games in the undergrad. And I got in a Calc 2 class my freshman year while trying to play full-time basketball at North Dakota State. And I was like, look, this is not working. And so I drop out of the class, and luckily I had calculus in high school and had gotten college credit for it. And I didn't have to take a math class, and I sat back in the rest of that first semester, and I just went, shoot, this isn't going to work. I got to rethink my plan. So in the spring, I just took a whole bunch of different classes. I found I liked some of the biologies. They made sense to me. They're easy. And then I transferred schools because the coach that came in was like, hey, I can't guarantee you play time. And I'm like, what's the point of being on the team if you're not going to play? And now we see transfers popular. So I started the movement. No, I'm kidding. And so when I transferred, they got me into an anatomy class that I wasn't supposed to be in because I didn't have any of the prerequisites. And I actually was one of the top 5 people in the class. And I'm like, wow, I did pretty good. And I thought it was pretty easy. And all these people are stressing out about it. And I'm like, maybe I should consider this further. And then one day when I was walking, I thought about who's going to take care of my family one day. Am I going to have to go find someone, or is this just something that I'm going to do myself? Because my dad just always took care of us. And so I was like, I should just take care of my family. And that's really where it started from, is just wanting to never have to depend on someone else to take care of my family, my wife, my kids, and things like that. And then through that, it grew all the other stuff where it is now. We're trying to really understand what heals and how that works and the mechanics behind it and apply it in a everyday life with regular people.
Awesome. So how did you first come across concept therapy?
Concept therapy, then you get stories now when this comes. This is how it comes with stories. I love to tell stories. So my dad was the first associate of Dr. Lee and Fur with Activator. And so he started Activator, and one of the things with Activator, a lot of their stuff came from Van Rump, if you heard of Dr. Van Rump. Now, he did a lot of the pressure test, muscles test, stuff like that. So where this comes into play is I'm about my first year in practice, and I have a patient that comes in, and this patient has low back pain, right side. I still remember the room I'm in. I remember everything about it. And I had seen him about 3 times, and he wasn't getting any better. It was 2 or 3 times. And so I went and grabbed my dad and I said, hey, can you come look at this guy? This guy's getting frustrated. He's not getting any better. I'm frustrated because he's not getting better. And so my dad comes in, he talks to him just real quick, couple seconds. He talks to him, finds out they're in the military around the same time together, lays him down on the table, looks around, does a couple pressure checks and whatnot, and adjusts him. He had an anterior 12.5, and so we adjusted him A to P, and the guy gets up and says, "Oh, that's so much better." And I'm like, what just happened? And so we go back in my office, and I was like, "Dad, what'd you do?" He's, "I found T12 anterior." I'm like, "Hey, look, that's what I found." He goes, "I adjusted to ADP." I'm like, "That's how I adjusted it." And he's, "I don't really know what to tell you," because he didn't know. He didn't know that there was something else involved. And that really got me to start thinking there's something else going on that I don't know. And clearly my dad knew how to tap into it, but I didn't know how to do that. And so I started to search, I started to ask questions, and I went through a lot of enzyme therapy with Dr. Loomis. I got into that before and started using it thinking, okay, it's nutrition. And so I used a lot of nutrition and enzyme supplements and coordinated that with adjusting. And as I did that, there'd still be cases where I'm like, this just isn't improving with all the enzymes and all the adjusting. It's still not getting better. I'm still missing something. And then I started to change how I practice. I started to look at things different. I started to do this and that and look at different adjusting techniques. And then I came across zone therapy that Dr. Pete Goldman taught. But I noticed when I asked questions with him, and when I noticed that he did not fill in gaps and holes, and there was a lot of logical things that weren't there. And so I found that very incomplete is the way that is my perception of it. Now, some people love it, and that's great for them that they found what helps them. But for me, it did not fill that questioning void. So then I thought, okay, if this came from Dr. Fleet, then why don't I just go to where it came from and see what it is? So then I took a class. It was an online one. They sent a USB. I read the book and started to just ask questions. I'm like, oh, okay. So now I'm starting to put some things together. And I got the phase 1 course online, and I read through that. And I'm like, okay, clearly I'm missing something. So then I flew down to San Antonio and took a concept therapy class that was being taught by the Maddox team. It was actually a class I probably shouldn't have been in. That seems to be a recurring theme in my world, because it was for the path seekers that have been through at least the first 4 phases of concept therapy and a lot of the higher work in there too. And I was in the class, and they went through a lot of different things, and I picked up things and asked questions, and I could tell that what I was looking for was here, but I couldn't understand it all yet. And so that was February of 2021 is when I took my first class, and it led to me going down to the ranch in San Antonio 10 different times. It was all the way through, was it 2023? I think was the last time I got a class, or was it 2022? Somewhere in there. It's all running together now when I went through all the things. But so I went through all the classes through concept therapy, conceptology, and had really got exposed to it, which helps my understanding now. And now I know when I look back on what my dad did and what happened in that moment and what I wasn't doing and why I didn't get the result, why my dad did. So it's a long answer.
No, that's beautiful. That's perfect. So what was your experience when you went through the very first class?
You go through it, and what you don't understand with concept therapy is that they give you everything at the start. They literally tell you everything, but you don't have the brain cells to understand what they're telling you. And so Dr. Fleet is, here's concept therapy. It's everything that you'll ever need to know. But because you don't know, I'm going to now create 8 more classes to tell you all the things that you didn't understand in concept therapy. And then once you understand all that, I'm going to create another class that explains all the classes and concept therapy a little different. So an example is one of the words in concept therapy, you take the word identification, and it happens once or twice in there. You read the word and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get identification. He goes on to take that one word and he creates an entire chapter in phase 6 on identification that takes an hour for them to teach, for it to be taught. And it's 12 to 15 pages of length off of one word. And so you get all of it in concept therapy, but you might not truly understand all of it yet. And the idea is, as you evolve your awareness and you become more aware of what they're teaching, you get this better understanding of what's going on. And as a physician, as a doctor, as a healer, you can now take that and utilize it in a day-to-day practice and help people not only heal, but just understand the world they live in for a more peaceful and orderly living.
So at what point did you decide to complete all of the concept therapy courses? And what kind of motivated that level or depth of study?
It was not knowing. It was having a patient come in and not knowing why they got better when they did and why they didn't get better when they didn't. And once I started to piece that together, then it became, okay, how do I get a suggestion into the subconscious? Like, how do we really do that? And then it's what makes up a suggestion. And then how do people let those in the first place? And it was the constant asking a question. Like, how does this work? How does that work? How does this fit? How do some people get sick? So as I kept asking these questions, it was always like, I have to take the next class to understand more of this. And then, so I kept taking the next class and the next class to understand more of how these things fit together. And the more I understand how they fit together, then it was like, oh, okay. And now I can use it in practice. And I could tell a story of today of like how I used it with a patient today in practice to help them in a very dramatic way, very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's really good. That's really good. So you feel like the way that the courses are designed with Dr. Fleet, it is a gradual asking more questions, and it feeds that level of study, and it feeds that thought as well too. Okay, that's good. Okay, great. And then, so as you were studying that, it's safe to say that your understanding of the work, it just evolved over time.
Oh yeah, because I constantly studying, constantly learning, studying. I would say there was from 2020, 2019, 2020 until even now, I probably spend 2 hours a day. It was a lot of reading and listening to a lot of the audio tapes at first. Now it's a lot more thinking and writing, going through things, looking at my end of it. I still read, but it might be I can read a paragraph and I got to stop because I'm thinking about it. So I'm reading at a much slower rate, but I'm understanding things differently. But it's really a study of the infinite. There's really no ending point, because it just goes to deeper and deeper levels and a greater understanding. And once you just think you got it figured out, all of a sudden, bang, something hits and you're like, nope, I'm not even close.
I'm sure there's going to be so many different things to kind of choose from or focus in, but let's get into some meat and potatoes. What concept therapy principles have you had or have had the most impact on your practice with patients?
Really, it comes, I don't know if there's just one, but learning suggestion to the degree has helped immensely. Understanding the composite personality and knowing you have to gain a composite with a person first in order to even deliver a suggestion that's going to stick, and then understanding how to deliver a suggestion and that there's order and a structure to it. But probably one of the most fun things is using the laws that are they're in the last chapter or two of concept therapy, but he expands them. And so there's a chapter in concept therapy. He goes through the 7 universal law. There's 7 subsidiary laws. The first law is energy is or God is. And then the 7 subsidiary laws, the perpetual transmission and transmutation of energy, vibration, rhythm, polarity, relativity, gender, and cause and effect. And taking those and applying them on a mental plane to someone in real time and watching them just go, oh, and watch that change occur so quickly that it had this dramatic effect. And I just had a patient in this morning, his new patient. She struggled with, it was right around COVID. She'd gotten COVID and got in the hospital. And they said, oh, if you don't have the vaccination, you're going to die. And that really scared her. Activated her self-preservation urge, and fear entered into her equation. Now, I knew I had to get the fear out, and her fear was of dying. So quickly I knew this, and I went, and now the laws have become second nature, where I'm like, okay, so we just have to create the opposite, use the law of gender, create the opposite. And by doing this, you can't ever die. So then all I knew is I had to get her to arrive at this conclusion. So I just asked her, I said, okay, we created our pole already. We got our polarity. We know her position's relative. So we just say, okay, now, I said, are you your body? And the answer is, of course, no, because everyone's been to a funeral and the body's there, but the person is not. So the answer is no. And then it becomes, okay, if you're not your body, can you ever die? And she responded, first it was this moment of she never thought of it. And then you can see the eyes open and it's no. And I said, if you can never die, then what are you worried about? And it took that fast. You could see it. You could watch her shoulders go from here and just drop. And she goes, I feel better already. And I can take a deep breath in. And it's just that quick. And when you know the laws and you apply them that quickly, it's a conversation that's 2 minutes, but changes their whole world.
That's amazing. Yeah. Can you think of any other turning points, either like in practice or in life, where you were able to pull from some of those, like the studies from concept therapy or any of the phases? Like any other aha moments while in practice?
There's aha moments all the time, but I have so many fun stories. I had let's think of another. I'll use one that's not even in practice to show how you can use it anywhere. I coach a homeschool basketball team. I moonlight as a high school basketball coach. Wonderful. And so we were in practice and I had a kid come up to me and he had a spot on his thighs. Look, the muscles are just contracted. I said, all right, did you have it earlier today? He said, no, it started like a half an hour ago. Because of concept therapy, I know that, and I knew this from earlier training, there's only 3 ways we get sick. One of them is mechanical, some sort of shock or trauma into the body. And I knew that wasn't the case because it happened 30 minutes ago when he was riding to practice. The other one's nutritional. The kid's riding to practice. I don't really have to inquire about his diet or anything else because he's literally riding in a car. So it can only be emotional. So I know he has some idea in there. So all I got to do is give him some reason to not believe that idea anymore. And so I take my thumb and I said, look, I'm going to find a spot on your leg and it's going to hurt like crazy, but it's only going to hurt for about 33 seconds. And as soon as I release that spot, this will be gone. You'll be able to practice without any trouble. He looked at me and said, okay. So I took my thumb, I found a trigger point in there, which is easy to find in everyone, pressed on it really hard. And I let it go. I said, get up and walk. It'll be gone. And so now I'm using suggestion in there too. He gets up, he goes, I got no pain. Let's go practice. He never had a problem again.
That's amazing. That's so good. That's really good. And these practical applications is what really makes this work super special because it's making a massive impact, not only in that person, but the world that they are existing in. So that's so good. You change that person's life right there. That's awesome. And then, so with you, so you're in practice, full-time practice now, and living as a basketball coach still, and making all this time to study the work. And I love how you make it very simple, like even how you explain the 3 T's of chiropractic right there. So it makes it super simple. And I know that you had started a Facebook group where one of your missions is to help a lot of chiropractors dive deeper into this work. What kind of inspired that process as well?
One kind of project of this of the practice as I moved here about 2 years ago now. When I started this, it was with the vision of being able to have doctors come in here and learn, so they don't have to go through all the things that I went through, like to have better healers out there, because I had to go through a lot of process and there's a lot of heartache, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of things that, like, how do I figure this out? How do I do this? How do I do that with the patient? And trying to understand the work. And Char Maddox has been an immense help to me. And I've spent numerous phone calls with him. I call him all the time and just talking about and going through and trying to understand what's going on and how to use it in my world and what I do and the way that Dr. Fleet intended it to be used. And knowing that there wasn't necessarily a chiropractor out there that I gravitated towards that really knew the work and how to use it in a setting. And so that's the idea of my practice, was to grow the practice and then be able to bring in other doctors to teach them on a hands-on basis in a real world. Hey, just like my dad but he didn't know why he got the result, but being able to say, hey, look, this is why this didn't work. And let me explain why, and let me explain why I use this way to do it if they couldn't get a result. But the Facebook group is to help doctors that may not necessarily be at a place where they want to be an associate in a clinic, or they like where they're at, they like their community, and they want to say they're like, great, stay and help those people, but they really want to learn, they really want to understand, they've been around the work, they like the work, but there's things that they just don't know real well. And it's my effort to try to teach them as much as I can. And if you notice, my first thing has been like just dissecting that composite personality. And I post it every day in a week. And it seems like there's people that are sitting there, I didn't know that. And when you look at the thing a chart that concept therapy gives all the students in a phase 1 class. There's a ton of information on there. And there's a ton of things that are taught in the classes that the student just doesn't pick up. And I know I didn't, but it was in thinking through it and working through it and understanding and going through the different phases and seeing it. So wait a second, there's a lot more here than just this idea transfers here. There's a lot to this. And being able to help other practitioners any way that I can is really my goal, is to make doctors better.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I have this conversation with a lot of chiropractors. I stay in communication with either chiropractors that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years, or just brand new graduates. And I always suggest them that they define a group or a mentor to be able to lead them down the path. And I admit, like, I'm probably not the best mentor for everybody, but at the end of the day, I believe it's great, or it's imperative for them, unless they just want to learn the hard way. But if you think about all of the different practice management groups out there, and then I'll get asked all the time, do you think I should join this group? Do you think I should join that group? And at the end of the day, it goes back to all the different techniques out there, or there's so many different practice management groups out there. I asked that specific question. I was like, do you see yourself like that founder or the person that teaches it? Or do you have a strong rapport with them? Because if there's not, then there's no point of joining that group. Or if they do join the group and they start not focusing in, not showing up to meetings, not listening, not hopping on calls, and start isolating themselves, I'm like, oh, there's probably a chance that you've lost rapport or composite with the founder of the group, right? Because, it just solves everything whenever you just sit down and have an understanding that you should also be a part of a composite as well too. And I love that you're being able to do that, because right now, I think that's a need both in the chiropractic profession, but also in concept therapy. So you have my 100% support in that. So if anyone's listening to this and watching this somewhere and this resonates with you, definitely reach out to Dr. Mike Patten, whether on social media or reach out to him at his practice, because it all starts from here. And then you did mention Charmatics, who I did a wonderful interview with him. He was also instrumental in me getting involved with concept therapy. I also took a class. Of course, I was way too high of a gradient. And I was like, oh yeah, let me take a step back a little bit too. So I was able to take concept therapy with Char and Jamie Alexander and Emily Maddox as well. But let's shift to the Rays of Dawn. What sparked the idea of either revising it, or when did you and Char begin that process?
So the way that happened was I had moved here, and when I moved here, you start in practice and you don't have people just busting your doors down.
Sure.
And so I actually used all the principles I learned from concept therapy to start this practice. I applied them into what it is right now. And anyways, I started looking at the paperback, and I had the paperback and the hardback, and I went, what is the difference between these two books?
Right.
And so because when I was studying some of the concept therapy things, it would say, hey, go look at this page in Raise the Dawn. And so I'd open up the page to Raise the Dawn and found out the paperback did not match what was in their study guides, but the hardback did. And I'd asked Shar about it. He just said, there's a difference in the books. You'll just have to look sometimes. And if Shar, that's 100% a Shar answer. He doesn't give you the answer. He's basically just says, go look and find out for yourself. And so I was sitting here one day waiting for all these patients to knock down my door. And I pulled out the books and I pulled out a chapter and I just started to compare them. And I realized that there is a ton of words and language that are changed. In particular, the chapter on worry they have a story that they present on how worry can develop in an individual and cause sickness. When they did the paperback, they switched the male and the female role in those, which you can't do that if you understand the originator and executive functions and what Dr. Fleet was trying to say in that. So right there tells us that whole chapter is now null and void, and it's removed the deeper meaning of it. And so then as I started to compare it to the other chapters, I noticed that they would change words here and there. And if you would go look up the definitions of the words that they changed, it changes the entire meaning of each sentence in each paragraph. and to a point where you have two entirely different books. They're not the same books. And I had brought this up with Shar, and he told me that he was aware of it, and he was also not, his input was not asked in the paperback book. And when I had talked to the head of the board right now, I can see his face, but I'm blanking on his name right now. Just texted him the other day too, Lee Zachary. I had approached him and just said, hey, look, we need to do something about Raising the Dawn because this paperback book is not the same book. We need to do it. And he said, great. Do you want to edit it then? So here's the funny part. English and writing was my worst subject in school.
Was.
Grammar is not my strong suit. And if you follow me on social media, you'll probably see that my grammar is not excellent, and I don't care. That's me. I've learned, this is just me, and it's okay. And anyways, I got it, and I took the hardback, and I literally typed that. I looked at it, and I typed it all into the computer. So I went through the whole book and typed it all up. And then after I did that, Shar had given me, I have copies of the original Raise of the Dawn. I have photocopies of all of them. I took pictures of so I got all on my computer. And then I have a paperback that precedes the hardback by about a year, and which people don't know that there's a paperback in there. And then the blue hardback came, and that was the last one Dr. Fleet worked on. And then this newest paperback. And so I went through and compared all of them to figure out what changed and where did it change, what word was removed or changed and why was it, and is one version better than the other. And there's, I think, is it in the chapter on fear? So there's a whole paragraph that was removed to the blue hardback it's getting added back in because I think it completes everything a lot better and makes it more readable. And so I went through, made all these changes. It took me like a year to do it because it's in between growing a practice at the same time and doing all those things. And so then I sent it to Shar, and Shar went through and he looked over everything now. And now it's at the educational committee and should be out shortly.
That's exciting. And I just absolutely love and appreciate that you spent that time and energy towards it. It just shows your love for it and your passion for it and in your inspiration for it too. So that's great. I love it. For people that don't know exactly what the Raise of the Dawn is, are you able to briefly kind of explain the whole thought process of it?
So Raise of the Dawn, its meaning and its use to me has evolved as I've went through the process.
Right.
Because you read the book and it changes you. You don't stay the same. You're never in the same place. So it's broken up into three parts. The first part is the laws of the body. So it's the law of movement, law of sanitation, law of recuperation, law of nourishment. And that's what I hammer to every single one of my patients there when they come in. We're going to follow these laws. If you are sick, and that's for anyone that's listening to this, if you're sick and something's wrong with you, you're violating one of the four laws. You're absolutely violating. And it's getting these laws back on track and focusing on that is what brings and restores health. And so even if you're a chiropractor and you're adjusting someone in the C2 every time they come in and you can't figure out why, look at the four laws. They're violating one of them, and that's why it's there. And so we have these four laws. It goes over teach a person how to live. And then if you really look at it, the four laws exist in a polarity and in opposites as well. Because you have rest and you have movement, you have nourishment and you have sanitation. So those are in opposites as well. Just like then you get laws of the mind, which is generally considered negative. And then you have laws of the soul, which are generally considered positive, and they exist in opposites of each other because the opposites are poles. And so an example of that, you take worry and you take hope. Worry and hope are really about the use of your imagination. So when you use your imagination incorrectly, you end up worrying. When you use your imagination correctly, you end up with hope. Because if you have a really dire situation and you start to project forward the things that could potentially happen in a positive way, that's going to give you hope. But if you're in the positive situation and you start projecting all the bad things and negative things that could happen, that's going to lead to worry. And so when you could start to see these poles that are behind these two emotions, when you find yourself worrying, you know that you're just projecting your imagination in an incorrect way, and you just need to switch it to a positive direction and get a different result.
That's amazing. And not to say that this book was not super helpful to millions of people all around the world, but I feel like there's going to be different levels in regards to understanding. So I actually haven't purchased the hardback yet. So I think I definitely want to get that added to my library. And I'm super excited to get the advanced version, the level 2, level 3 level of Rays of the Dawn. And were there any parts that you felt that was edited out or softened that were like really surprising to you?
From the original to the blue hardback book, there was parts there was a whole paragraph missing, just completely gone. And as I'd read the paragraph, I'm like, I have no idea why this was removed. And so I'd call up Shar and I'd be like, why did he remove this? And Shar's answer is usually, I don't know, or it could have been because at the time when they printed, it wasn't 100% necessary. And so they removed it merely to save paper and to fit things in and stuff like that. And so as I read it, though, I felt like it completed chapters or it completed a thought process. And so I'm like, look, now's the best time to put it back in. Printing's easier than it was when this was first made. Stick it back in, complete the thought. And it was there, and there's some sentences that changed. There's not a lot that's changed from the blue book, but there's enough where I think it will be a very nice improvement upon Fleet's work. I think he would be happy with it because a lot of the stuff that got added back in was the stuff he had in the original anyways.
Right.
So it's not like I added any of my own thoughts. I did not add any of my own thoughts. I merely went through and it was comparing things, and I looked between, okay, in this one he had this word, in this one he had this word. Why did he change the word, and what word should it be? And then what word gives a better picture? Because really when you get to each sentence is a suggestion, and each paragraph is a suggestion, and each chapter is a suggestion, and the book is a suggestion. And when you get to that, you realize that the words matter. And so really looking at that, and there's some areas where it was easier for me to read it a certain way, so it might have been tweaked a little bit, but that might have been 5 times in the whole book. There's some areas that you'll read that appear clunky and really weird. And if you stop for a second on those sentences and you read it, you realize, and you think about it as this is a suggestion, and look up some of the words that appear clunky, you'll get the picture and the meaning behind what he's saying, and you realize that you can't say it a different way.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful. And then I know Rays of the Dawn was written a while back, but how do you think Rays of the Dawn speaks to the challenges people are facing today in a very tech-driven and a very overstimulating world?
So most people don't know that Dr. Fleet did not want to attach his name to Rays of the Dawn.
Oh, wow.
He originally put on there the author was X. He just wanted an X on there. That's it. And from what I'm told, there is a source document that Rays of the Dawn comes from, and it isn't necessarily all of Dr. Fleet's thoughts. So that's always an interesting thing too, is this is just a reproduction of previous works. Well, a lot of Rays of the Dawn doesn't change with technology, because like our imagination, like that one, our use of our imagination doesn't change because technology changes. We still use our imagination on a day-to-day basis. People tap into their imagination to make their next TikTok video. They tap into their imagination to invent the next tech or the next social media thing or the next meme coin that's going to come out. Like they sit there and they think about these things and they project them forward. And so anytime they use an imagination, it opens up to hope and worry. And so by having these tools and to know what that is, it really doesn't change with the stuff around us. The stuff around us is going to constantly change, but that use of imagination is going to stay as a principle.
And then last question about Rays of the Dawn. What do you think has been the most rewarding part of collaborating with Chiropractic on this project?
I talked to him a bunch before, and I talk to him a bunch now. That part doesn't change. Shar, he's been like a second dad to me. He's taught me so much, and he's not even a chiropractor. And I don't even have a chiropractor like he has to be. But just knowing that anyone can understand the work. Anyone can use the work, that the principles are timeless. And that it gave me a comfort to see that. And also a challenge of, hey, this guy understands healing and he's not a doctor, the physician that's treating people. And so to put your ego aside and be like, listen to someone that has wisdom that can help guide you in a way, guide you in a path, and use these principles that transcend just not only healing, but they transcend any job, any problem in life. And you can take these principles, apply them in healthcare, apply them in healing, but then apply them to the problems that you encounter in your everyday world, to realize that you attracted this problem. It came to you for a reason. It's there for a reason, and it's for you to grow, for you to learn, for you to understand, and to use these principles to work through.
Yeah, that's so good. And looking back at your journey through concept therapy and studying Dr. Fleet's work, what personal transformation are you most grateful for?
Probably the emotional balance, because when something negative comes at you, your true character gets revealed. And what a lot of doctors do when a patient comes in and they're not following instructions, or they're not doing something you ask, or they're not getting better, is a doctor tends to get mad, angry, frustrated. Anger or frustration is just an inability for us to express what we're feeling or getting the result that we had. And being able to have the emotional balance to realize that this person doesn't know if I'm working with someone, or to know if I'm encountering some challenge, it's because I attracted this situation. And now I need to use these laws and these principles to get out of the situation. Or it's I'm doing all the things that I need to do, and it's just to be patient, and because the spirit needs to work. It needs an incubation period and a time to work. And that's even like building the practice. There's times where, hey, I'm doing all the things that I need to do, and it's just I just need to continue doing these. I don't need to jump ship. I don't need to go to this latest marketing thing or the latest this, that, or the other thing. I just need to stick with the principles and what has worked, and continue to just being patient, allow that spirit to keep grabbing people and bringing them in and attracting them in, knowing that it will do that. And that's what it's done. And it's without having that principled background, you'd be emotional basket case all over the place, but it gives you a balance, and knowing that you're working with principles and you're working with laws, and that things will happen as long as you stay true to them.
Yeah. An old chiropractic philosophy teacher of mine said, follow the principles, not the personalities. So I got it as well too. So my last question for you today is, what would be your hope for the next generation of chiropractors and students of concept therapy?
If it was the chiropractors and students of concept therapy, we could separate it out. We could put it all together. I'll say it many different ways, but the same thing. Just for chiropractors in general, just better healers, and realize that we're not competing with each other. When you really understand the law of vibration, you understand that no one's competing with anyone. So get the idea out of your mind that you're competing with each other, and start to lean into what people are good at and what they attract into their office, and where their wheelhouse is. But for them to understand the principles that they're dealing with behind it. And because I was at a little chiropractic meetup last week, and there's a guy in there that he loved his sports medicine stuff and all of his rehab and prolotherapy. And I'm like, great, you do you, that's you. But I would love if he did it with better understanding, where he really understands the principles behind creating a composite and giving suggestion with what he's doing. And that way would really happy to see that. And the ones that are there that do nothing but nutrition, but doing it with an understanding of they're creating a composite and giving a suggestion, and that's why they're doing it. And for that to happen, because then they're using the principles behind healing, and they know they're attracting the people that are inclined to those type of treatments. That would be my goal. What I think will happen with chiropractic is we'll keep having your personalities that pop up, that pull in their people that think that their next laser treatment or DRX 9000 or whatever is the next latest and greatest thing that actually heal people. And they don't really understand that those are just a way to convey a suggestion, and that's what is really healing people.
That's amazing. So definitely reach out to Dr. Mike Patten if you help each other out. So once again, Dr. Mike, thank you so much for today, and we'll definitely chat soon.
No, absolutely. It was great. Thanks for having me on. And these conversations are always fun. I always like to get the information out there as much as we can, and hopefully get that vibration out there to attract more people that are interested in just healing.